Good afternoon, Ronan.
Hi, Debbie.
How are you?
Yeah, good. Long time no see.
Long time no see. How are you?
Yeah, I'm hanging in. It's a struggle here, lockdown and all.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I have to say your room looks gorgeous behind you.
I spent all day yesterday cleaning it up for you to make it look kind of good.
Is that a real Oscar on the mantelpiece, or is it? Did you buy it in Nolan's?
Well, no, it's kind of, to me, it's real. It means a lot to me.
Yeah, no,
it's not.
What is it?
I actually got it years ago. It was just a joke from. I was a musical director for Tops of the Town.
Right.
Remember that talent?
Yeah, yes.
So the group that I worked for, I think it was Manhattan, and we didn't win, but they just liked me so much they gave me this as they thought I was the best. So
Of course, Ronan, just let me introduce you and on our own, of course, personal TV network that we own.
Congratulations.
So you're probably one of the best trumpet players in Ireland, if I could say that about you.
Luckiest, I think. One of the luckiest.
Yeah, and just give me, I've been at I don't know how many, dozens and dozens of events that you've done, and you've just, you actually make a night for everybody, there's no doubt about it. Your team are absolutely amazing, that you're always with. Doesn't matter whether you have 2 or 3 or whether you have 10 on the stage, they do definitely make a night.
I always work with good people. Actually, that's one of the keys to doing well. If you're always working with good people, it kind of elevates you. It makes you look
so true.
Good.
I use that theory all the time.
Huh?
I use that theory all the time.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, yeah. But it's not. I mean, I've been a freelance musician for like 30 years or so. So I mean, I've done loads of different things. So the stuff we'd be doing for you, that'd be scraping the barrel of the work I did, really. That whole Russia with Love stuff. That's pretty mundane. No, I'm joking.
I was just about to say, dare you?
No. We always had that.
We had brilliant nights.
That was a great
night. Back in the day when we were rolling in loads of money.
Yeah.
Unlike at the moment, charities are on their knees at the moment, really, I think, because everybody's on their knees at the moment, not just charities, but it's definitely going to hit the sector very hard.
Oh, hugely, yeah. No, I've just heard ads today on the radio for, some of the autism charities and the Bill Foundation and all this stuff.
Yeah, and I know them very well. They're very good. I know Jonathan Years. I think we might have to do something ourselves now at this point, because really it's going to be really, really difficult autumn. Anyway, just first of all, tell me some of the people that you've played with.
Oh, well, okay. I was trying to remember actually. Funnily enough, a huge range of people. Irish artists, international artists. But going back, I worked with Bing Crosby. So that one is a kind of a stand, which is probably hard to believe. I know I don't look 70, but
Yeah, my God.
No, I did it. No, that was a weird one. It was when it was with the Artane band, like years and years ago.
Yeah.
He came to Ireland, and we went to meet him off the airplane or something, about 30 and we played his theme song was Where the Blue of the Night Meets the Gold of the Day. That was his so we played that with him. He came down off the plane, we played it, and he sang with us. So okay, I didn't really play it, but but it was amazing.
I know, yeah.
I was like,
my God, that's a gorgeous story.
Yeah. But no, over the years I've played Shirley Bassey, Johnny Matta, these are international people.
Oh my God, Johnny, When a Child is Born.
Johnny Matta, yeah. Brian Adams. I toured with Oasis for a while. The rock group.
God, I did not know that.
Yeah, loads of stuff. The Corrs, Paul Brady, Van Morrison, Gene Pitney. I worked with obviously Glenn Hansard recently. I toured a lot with Glenn won the Oscar. He is the real one of these. Glenn, he won for Falling Slowly.
Yeah.
So and then I've done a lot of session work, soundtrack stuff. Obviously, I did the Commitments way back in the day. I worked on the soundtrack of the Commitments. So I was Joey's Lips. That's kind of my Johnny Murphy was the actor who played Joey the Lips, but he wasn't a musician, right? So I all the trumpet stuff I obviously did on that. So
I did not know that. God, the Commitments, we all adored it.
Yeah, no. So look, that was one of the iconic moments. I thought that was going to be the norm. I'll be doing a film every year, but it didn't quite work.
Your industry is very erratic.
Oh, which?
Your industry is very erratic.
Yeah, totally. No, listen, I mean, I always remember laughing about the time I was working with Oasis, right? We did a bit of a tour in England, but we had just finished Wembley Arena or somewhere, some big, huge venue.
Small place like Wembley Arena, yeah.
Yeah, we just did that on like a Sunday night, right? 10,000 people or whatever it was, massive gig. And then the next night I was playing in Dublin, in My Fair Lady, in St. Paul's, school up in Mahini. That was the next gig. So, but that's the beauty of music. To be honest, you just do so much. You get to so many different things. You get to travel a lot. I mean, I've traveled so much over the years, and it's just great fun, and it's diverse. If you're a freelance player, it's very diverse.
And isn't it hard on a marriage and hard on a wife and kids? I would have thought. Yeah,
at times. I mean, if you're touring, it's tough. You're away for chunks of time, So
yeah.
But in fairness, when we started having kids, we ended up with 4 kids. After we had our second kid, I kind of stopped touring. I stayed at home, because it was tough. Anne-Marie was still working as well. So I kind of stayed at home. So once you're in the country, it's actually great because I'm home all. So the whole childcare thing, like Anne-Marie could go back to work. I was here
during the day.
I could mind the kids. Okay, at night I'd go and do gigs, but she'd be home. So with the kids, it actually was really good. For me and Anne-Marie, it was tough. You didn't have as much time as you might like. You never have weekends. Because you're always working at weekends. So,
Ronan, can you tell me this now? You're one of those weird people that have that combination brain going on. Like you've got the totally artistic side, completely and utterly. You're a brilliant musician. And then you have the kind of, you have a huge interest in science on the other side, which I would have thought is not everybody has the two things going on. That you're either kind of lean one way or the other, but you have an extraordinary interest in science, and you've got kids who've all gone on to kind of do madly clever stuff like physics and math stuff.
Yeah, it's funny that the music didn't rub off on them so much. Even though they've seen me, and they all play. They've all learned instruments and they play, but and they do enjoy it. But none of them ever considered a music career. That's for sure. But the science thing was just by osmosis. I'd always be talking about, what book I was reading, or we'd go out looking at, I have a telescope there. So we used to go out looking at the stars, and just I just had a real, like in school, I wasn't good at maths or physics at all. I know I didn't work at any. I was very, very lazy. Yeah. So I never considered pursuing that line, that kind of career path. And it was just over time, then I just, you'd see stuff on television, or I probably mentioned it to before, that Carl Sagan was a big moment for me. And I did with a neighbor next door who was into science as well, actually, that kind of got me into it. But Carl Sagan, I remember seeing his first Cosmos series back in like the early 80s about space. It was about space.
I'm actually going to put that link up when I pop you up, because I watched it last night when you sent it to me in a message.
Oh, yeah.
And the big blue dot, or the little blue dot.
The pale blue dot.
Yeah. My God, it's like, well, it really puts into perspective that we're nothing.
Oh, exactly. Yeah.
Like, it really makes you think, my God, we are like,
literally,
I think
it's of dust, it's,
And we think we're so important with our cars and our planes and our problems and our this. And like, when you look at the earth, I mean, I know you're much bigger into this time, and actually when I looked at it on YouTube, there's other videos, there's other films that you get totally drawn into them, because they're all on the same vein.
Oh yeah.
So what are your views on the planet the way it is at the moment, Ronan? Do you think it's our own fault that we are where we are?
Oh yeah, of course. There's no doubt about that. It's kind of like, again, I've been thinking about it a little bit, but it's as positive an effect as, say, capitalism has had, that model of kind of progress and ambition and technological improvement and all of that. Like, it's been hugely beneficial, up to this point, more or less. Standard of living has gone up. Everyone, again, you just look at the lives we have, even compared our kids to us, even in 50 years or 40 years, just we have so much more. And obviously the internet, information exchange, the whole thing. But even, materially, our kids have, they've too much, to be honest. I think it went too far. And that's just across the board. So I think capitalism, the model worked great, but I think it has now gone too far. It's going too far, to the extent that at the rate we're going, in 30 or 40 years, there's a good chance, the planet almost won't be habitable. Certainly not for the number of people that are on it. The environment is absolutely being destroyed by, just this insatiable consumerism, economic growth, just on and on. So, yeah, and we're destroying the environment. That's it.
Do you think we're capable of doing something about it, or are we going to launch straight back in to this whole madness again and suddenly forget that it was ever here, that we were all sitting looking out the window locked in? Yeah,
I think there's a huge danger that could happen. There'll be this, and you see it already. Look, even here in the lockdown, you've people that couldn't just stay at, they had to go down to their holiday homes, or, people just they're itching to get back out, and we want to go to the pub. Even you see people online, we can't wait for the big booze. And look, we are going to have some of that, obviously, and rightly so. But I do think this is more of a wake-up call than we've had before. I do think this will have an effect, definitely. But we need to resist, as you that piece you put up, the gaslighting article that you put up today,
brilliant article.
Where it is a brilliant article, and where there will be this pressure from advertising, from business, come on guys, let's get back on. We've got to get back, get the economy running. And I met the economist there the other day. This guy called Jim Power was on News Talk, and they were discussing how are we going to get things going again. And he said, economic growth is what we must achieve. We've got to get this. So already there's this thing, we've got to get back on, we've got to keep buying stuff. And no, that's, to me, that's the way we can't go, or not to the extent we did. So I think everyone just has to rein in their ambitions and, their material wants, and realize, as we're all realizing, some of us, I certainly am. I love, as I mentioned to you before, I quite enjoy the lockdown, right? I love the calmness. I love the more time. Just, and even just go out at night. I am into the space thing, but if you can, obviously you can't travel away from the house too far, but if you can go into a dark space on a clear night and just look up at the sky, there's nothing more beautiful or awe-inspiring, Well,
you must have been blown away last week with the pink moon down. Did you go down to the seafront?
I couldn't really. I was out. I had a good. It's where I am. It's a little bit shielded, so no, I had a great look. I had the telescope out and all, so I was. Yeah, no, it's amazing. Even just looking at the moon through a telescope. A lot of people have never done that, right? People should do that. It's amazing. Or even look. I'll tell you one of the little things that always just made me gasp a little bit, and it's a tiny thing, but you look up at stars and planets, and most people don't even know they're looking at a planet often. It just looks like a big star, right? But so you look, but when you look through a telescope, obviously you just see this a little bit more detail. So for example, if you look at Jupiter, if you look at Jupiter in the sky, you just see a really bright point of light, and it just looks like a star. You don't get any indication that it's a massive body that's orbiting the sun and all that. We look through a telescope, you can actually see, you can see a ball. So you can actually see that it's not just a point of light, it's a ball. But you can also see the moon. You can see 3 or 4 of the moons, right? So you can see these tiny little points of light that are orbiting Jupiter. So suddenly you realize it's not a point. This is a massive planet with other, astronomical bodies orbiting it. It just makes you see the thing with way more awe and way more appreciation, so that's just, even a pair of binoculars will give you that. So I'm just saying, people need to spend more time just looking around, enjoying nature, enjoying, not just, again, we need to, in terms of changing our attitude, role models are a huge thing, I think. So it's just let's aspire to be somebody, let's not aspire to be, Khloe Kardashian.
Kim Kardashian.
Huh?
Kim Kardashian.
Oh, Kim or let that kind of empty, vacuous lifestyle. Just what are they doing? They're doing nothing. They just talk about their social lives on social media, and they get paid. It's look at Carl Sagan, Richard
Yes,
Feynman.
I know, but they do have 200 million followers. So there's something wrong with the system when 200 million people think that that's fabulous.
You know? And that's how things have progressed, you know, and it's partly due to the power of, this is one of the negatives, I think, of media and the social media and all the different, you know, YouTubes and Snapchats and everyone looking at what everyone else is doing and trying to make it look great and all this. And that's the downside. I mean, the good side is there's loads of information there if you look for it, good information and good people. So it's just trying to get people to refocus what they think is great, right? And
well, Ronan, I have to tell you a little story. I have a few astronaut stories because I'm a bit fixated with astronauts. I was in Russia about 10 years ago. Now, I met another space doctor recently in Russia from Moscow University, but I was in Russia about 10 years ago and I was at a dinner party and this guy sitting beside me and I asked him what he did and he said he was a cosmonaut. And I was kind of going, oh my God, like to me, that's just, you know. So anyway, he was a big, important man in the room and everybody was very, you know, kind of bowing and scraping, as you would. So I asked him, would he mind coming to the orphanage that week and talking to the children? Now, cosmonauts wouldn't go to orphanages very often. And so anyway, he said, no problem. So he was there was 99, I think, Russian cosmonauts that had been, I don't know where they'd been, and I'm terrible for that information. But anyway, he was one of 99 kind of famous ones. And he arrived at the orphanage the next day in all his kind of admiral's gear, because you know the way they're all admirals in the army or whatever. And he brought home movies with him. And we went we kind of had a really shitty old school hall and with benches, the real old deal. We hadn't done anything in the school at the time. And all the kids sat down, including myself. And we pulled down the old fashioned little white screen, like the old rolly old screen. And he beamed his home movies from his video recorder of his spaceship leaving Kazakhstan, and he was filming out the window, and it came out from Kazakhstan and over Bryansk, which is where we work, and because he was from Bryansk, so he was able to show the children Bryansk from the spaceship. And then, this is a true story, then he went to Mir. At the time, Mir was there, and it shows him opening the door of his space shuttle, and a Chinese guy opens the door of Mir, and they talk to each other in Russian, because Russian's the common space language. And when he steps into the bloody space station, all my kids are sitting in a forest, in a school hall, in an orphanage watching this. He steps into the space station, and there's an American couple of cosmonauts getting married. And the girl was wearing a pink blouse with kind of fringes on it. The fringes were going up in the air and they were drinking champagne and the bubbles were going up in the air. They were actually getting married on Mir as he stepped into Mir. And we were actually watching this in an orphanage school hall in the middle of nowhere.
Is this live?
He had filmed it.
Oh, sorry, he had filmed it.
Those whole movies.
Right.
So we started a program then after that called Reach for the Stars, so that the kids felt that they could break boundaries, which obviously he had broken boundaries, you know. Now I have a few astronaut stories, but I'm not going to go into them all. But just he was such a beautiful man. No.
Friday, we talked about Friday.
I met another gorgeous man last year and at a party this year, actually 2 months ago in Moscow. And he's a space doctor. So when everybody comes back from space, he examines all the biological changes in their bodies. He's been doing it. He's like 70 something. And he has an office in Moscow and he has an office in NASA. And he was telling me about his life, like working with astronauts all his life. And then last year I wrote to Chris Hadfield. I have a bit of a fixation about astronauts. Last year I wrote to Chris Hadfield, who's the guy who sang Ground Control to Major Tom.
Of course,
And I asked him would he help us with the project. He's an extremely nice guy. I went to see him talking down in the O3. And he showed us video footage. Now, a bit like your Sagan's video footage, of the Earth from space, and how just extraordinarily insignificant we are, really, and yet we think we're so pompous and important, you know?
Oh, yeah, God. No, even
on the current new subject, Ronan, what are your thoughts on the World Health situation last night? Now, I try and avoid politics on this because it's a load of shit at the moment and it's driving us all nuts. But what do you think of Trump's move?
Obviously it looks like, as usual with him, a kind of a distractionary tactic, partly to just take all the focus away from his mistakes or his slowness in dealing with obviously with the outbreak. I mean, I don't, obviously, none of us know, I don't know the workings of the World Health Organization. I have heard a few stories. Can you see stuff also online that your man who runs it is a little bit, has had maybe not a great history. He made a few mistakes over it with some other outbreak back, whenever, I can't remember. Like, you'll hear people casting aspersions, etc.
Yeah.
So, and I don't know, maybe, I tell you what, I have seen a few things, and I don't know if the WHO had anything to do with this or not. I mean, as far as I know, they did what they're meant to do. They seem to be putting out warnings, but maybe it should have been sooner. Who's to say? But if here's some stuff about to do with China, and again, you have to take certain things with a pinch of salt. But it was some woman being interviewed, and I think she was involved in politics or some organization, but kind of saying she seemed to know a bit about the trade deal that America and China had done, back about 5-6 months ago. And apparently there was some clause in it which said, in the event of a pandemic, it sounds a bit too obvious, but in the event of a pandemic, China wouldn't be obliged to honor whatever part of the deal that they had signed, something of buying stuff from America, whatever. And so, wow, suddenly there's a pandemic. So you kind of think, well, is that a coincidence or not? Like there was a thing actually last night on CNN about concerns that had been expressed by some American observers about a laboratory in Wuhan that was doing tests on bats, coronavirus in bats, about 7 or 8 months ago. And they'd actually written a report kind of concerned about conditions there. And there was, that they weren't ideal. Now, they're not saying therefore, but this was raised months ago. And you wonder a little bit.
Yeah.
Like Wuhan is the same size as New York roughly, and it's had relatively very few cases, and they're now out of lockdown. So you kind of think, were they prepared in advance? Did they know what was coming? Again, I'm not into conspiracy theories, but either way, I think China have to answer some questions, even if it came from these wet markets or whatever they are. Even if that was the source, it probably was.
Yeah.
Maybe they have to, because that was where SARS came from and various other ones. So I think they have to be held to account a bit as to what they're doing there. Because, that's only one thing. Look, the West is doing things. We're doing agriculture, over-intensive, maybe the whole, the genetically modified stuff. I think that's safe, but who knows? Like, we're all doing stuff. The West is polluting. Yeah. We're causing a lot of problems ourselves. So it's not like it's all China's fault. But
and Ronan, listen to me. If we keep this much longer, we can't post it. So sorry. If I was to ask you, Ronan, going forward, I mean, we're all thinking, what do we, like, it's all very well saying, okay, we've got to make changes, but we're really crap at change. Change is really hard for the human to make. Yeah. What changes are you going to make? And what changes do you think we're going to have to make as a race of people in order to survive this?
I mean, the changes in a way are obvious, but it's how do you make people do it? How do you get people to change? So, I mean, we need to reduce spending, growth. We need to rein in all that consumerism thing, because that's what's destroying the environment. So people just need we need to accept that maybe a slightly lower standard of living. I mean, genuinely, and if we can live, obviously the way we've been for the last month or so, that's not going to. We can't keep that up over a long period of time. Mm-hmm. But if we could strike a balance between this and the way we were, just where everybody modifies behavior a little bit. Again, I've mentioned this before, but even when you think of now, recycling is an everyday that we all do it. We all have our green bins, brown bins. Certainly 10 years ago, nobody recycled or thought about it, right? So that's a change of attitude. We all do it here. You think, you rinse out your stuff and you bring your bottles down to so like that's a change. Right? That's an example. And if we can just, everybody bit by bit, I mean, but even now we need to do it quicker. I mean, it's becoming critical, right? I think we all, and that's the good, I think everyone is now realizing there is a problem. Like, you look at what one virus can do. If that was a slightly more virulent strain, it could wipe out half the planet. Like, it only takes a few mutations of that virus where it's way more deadly, right?
Yeah.
So life is so fragile, and the environment is
Yeah.
fragile, as we can see with global warming and water levels and climate change. It's happening. As much as some people dispute it, it's obvious it's happening. So I think that everyone's mindset will have changed a little bit. I mean, initially they're going to go mad, they'll probably be partying, but I think there will be a hangover of realization that, so, you know, don't change your car every year, or maybe, you know, don't go down to Wexford for your holiday, go down to Kelly's or whatever, you know, this frenzy traveling. Everyone just needs to step back and think about what they're doing. And everyone's not going to do everything the right way, but slowly but surely, attitude, I think people will, I hope, and that's what needs to happen. It's an attitude, and it's, you know, just having the right priorities and just living
when they're chanting at us on the radio about the growth that needs to happen, we all need to be thinking, actually, no, maybe it doesn't need to happen.
Oh, definitely no. I mean, look, we still have to have an economy, and we still have to generate wealth to pay for everything, but if everybody just realizes, well, I'll take a little bit less, which means we don't have to make as much wealth as we did, and we still have enough to go around to help people who are vulnerable, you know, and homeless, all of that thing. But the model has to just change. I just think growth, we have to accept no growth or minimal growth, and use that money better, and people, and we can do it, you know, we can all live more simply, and we're going to have to, you know, and this, I do think this is a good way. It's devastating as well. Look, people are dying, it's horrendous, but overall, we will get through this. But I think we're learning a lesson. I think we have to, you know, because because the planet won't be habitable certainly in 40 or 50 years. I think we'll be in, you know, there'll be no way back, you know. But it's all about small things that we do, like recycling, you know, and then they need to sort out maybe the cars, you know, electric car stuff and the battery life and all of that, flying, small little things. But hopefully I think people's awareness has been raised by this, and that's a good thing. So we can start from that and start making some small changes that will all add up over time, you know. Hopefully.
Okay, well listen, thank you very much for your wisdom.
Yeah, well,
such
as it is.
Thanks a million, Ronan. It was great to chat to you. And I'll definitely put up that link to Carl Sagan's thing, because it is fascinating. I'll put it up on top of your little post, because it does kind of make you feel how insignificant we really are.
No, if people are looking for wisdom, to me, any of the great physicists, Carl Sagan, another guy called Richard Feynman, was a bit more academic than Carl Sagan, but still, every time that anything they say, it just makes it elevates your thought, and it makes you think. These are the people. So don't look to Kim Kardashian for life advice or any of that stuff.
Okay, I'm going to end on that note. Okay, well, let's hope she doesn't sue you for that, okay? Because she's got more lawyers than you do. She can afford to pay more lawyers than you can. Ronan, listen, thanks a million.
Yeah, go on. I'll talk to you soon, Debbie. Well done. Stay well.
Bye. Bye-bye. See you.
Bye.